Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Saturday evening, morning, afternoon, depending on where you are. We're here with my glorious co-idiot host, Eddie, who's coming to us from Texas. So maybe we'll find out about his stories going in and out of the country multiple times. And we have a very special guest with us tonight. We have Sydney with us. Sydney is a student of St. Petersburg State University. And she came here from the United States. She runs a YouTube channel called Opening Russia that has some great interviews for people, especially students who are looking to come here, but people in general about what they really should know. You can apply anything on her channel to, young and old alike. And she opened a project called Opening Russia. And I actually have that website here in a new folder, so I have to find it. Go out and check it out. This project is to help foreigners move to Russia for study, work, immigration. She makes no money on it, so if you want to donate to Sydney, you can throw it in our donation pot since we're remonetized again. Hey,
Yay.
And I'll make sure it gets to Sydney to help her out. I mean, come on, guys. She's a poor, struggling, hungry student. So that
Thank
said,
you so much for the introduction.
Sydney, welcome to the channel. Our pleasure. So
thank you so much for having me on.
It's our pleasure. In case anybody wants to know that's listening, I've kind of taken Sydney under my wing. I treat her like I treat my own daughter because she's the same age. So any of you guys out there with your eye on her, you got to go through me first. So, and Eddie second. Eddie's
as well.
Yeah. So anyway, Sydney, welcome, and tell us, where'd you come from?
So I am from Charlotte, North Carolina. I've lived most of my life in Charlotte, and I didn't have even a lot of travel experience before I came to Russia. I kind of just went headfirst into living abroad. I'd never been to Russia even before I moved. But I've studied Russian language now for 3 years. I enrolled in the St. Petersburg State University preparatory program in 2021, completed it in 2022 with my B2 examination. And then I enrolled full-time as a student of St. Petersburg State University Faculty of International Relations in 2022. And I am now on my 3rd year of my bachelor's program, currently studying. And that's the biggest part about me, biggest part about my life, I feel like.
How in the Carolinas did you decide that you were going to study Russian?
So before I studied Russian, I studied both Japanese and I also studied Slovenian, but not with a lot of success. I originally thought I was going to study in Slovenia and not Russia. I planned to study in Slovenia or Serbia from the time I was 14 until about 2020. Then I decided I pivoted more towards Russia. I figured that it was a more realistic goal, and I really started to discover Russian culture, especially Russian and Soviet music, especially Soviet estrada, and I just fell in love with that. And I ended up making Russian friends. And one day I had a friend of mine, not even a friend of mine at that point, just an acquaintance, who suggested that she could teach me Russian. And as I say in Russian, поехали. We started immediately. She started teaching me Russian, and it just kind of developed from there. I studied Russian on my own for about a year, but I wasn't successful. And then finally, when I joined the preparatory program, it all kind of came to fruition, so to speak.
And if you guys want to know how well she speaks Russian, go check out her YouTube channel. I tell you what, she looks like a Russian. She sounds like a Russian. No way to tell the difference, right, Eddie?
Absolutely. Very, very articulate and natural. I envy that.
Thank you
Me
so
too.
much.
Yeah. I sound like the bumbling idiot I am when I speak Russian. So, so how are you finding life in Russia as a Westerner?
So I sometimes wonder what kind of world I live in because I have yet to experience any real hardship being in Russia. And part of me is still kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, so to speak, in some kind of way, because I feel like in a year and a half everything has gone too well. I mean, I think I've had issues that everybody has to a certain degree with certain things like registration, um, and some immigration things that I think every single foreigner, no matter where they're from, goes through. But I have never encountered any difficulty specifically from the fact that I'm an American, that I'm from the West. None of that. I've never had anybody discriminate against me because of being Western, being from the West. In fact, my only negative experiences with people have been when they thought I was Russian. I've never had anybody be like, oh, you're American, you're bad. Typically, I get the opposite. I get more favorable treatment because of that. It's even kind of a privilege. I recognize that. And people are either very positive or open towards Westerners, or they just don't care one way or another. And I think it's a testament to the generous Russian spirit and how generous Russians are in general, that despite the fact that the West is essentially waging a war on Russia, Russian people are still willing to open up their country to Westerners and are still willing to accept Westerners into the country and not discriminate against them in any way.
Yeah. Do you find that sometimes you get a little better treatment when they find out that you're a Westerner?
Yes, I think so.
Does it make you uncomfortable, or would you prefer they treat you the same? Or is it just natural at this point?
I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable, but it's definitely something that I recognize that I do have a privilege. And it would be better to be treated as everybody else, but sometimes it is nice just to have understanding. I would say it's nicer to have understanding because of me being a Westerner. Just an understanding that maybe I don't come from the same society, the same background. So sometimes I might misinterpret something or behave a little bit differently. That to me is something that I appreciate.
So, have you lost the American smile at strangers?
Yeah, I say I've lost that for sure. I have kind of a poker face going down the street. And even now, I noticed today I saw some guy smiling down the street, and I thought, oh, why is he doing that? Like steer clear from that guy.
Yeah, you're turning into a Russian.
And
Either that
I
or they're
definitely
foreigners.
noticed. Yeah, I think he was foreign.
Telltale sign.
Yeah, for sure.
Eddie?
No, I was just going to say that, being back in Texas now, my big Texas smile has returned. And I'm very much Texan right now, very much American. So when I go back to Moscow, that's going to have to change quite a bit. But I think I'll be able to adapt quite easily because, it's like when in Rome. You just follow what the locals do.
Is your wife there with you, Eddie?
No, she's not. We were not able to get a visa in time, and that's another story for another time.
Yes. So, Sydney, what was your biggest challenge when you moved here to study?
I would say my biggest challenge was the weather, actually. I had a really rough acclimatization last year. Um, it was a really difficult period for me. I won't go all into it, but I had a lot of anxiety because of the lack of sunlight and how dark it was and how cold it was. And it was really hard for me to really get out and do things and get motivated to do things. And it was even hard to study during that time. And this year has been a lot better, thankfully. I'm very glad for that. And so it's been a lot better. And but other than that, I think most of my transition has gone very, very smoothly. I've been really lucky that I've met a lot of really wonderful people that have helped me out, or just been generally wonderful to me in my journey. And of course, there was definitely adjustments to studying in person, for example, because I studied online for 2 years just at my university. And before I even enrolled in my university, I studied online in high school for 4 years and middle school for about 1 year. So I hadn't studied offline in a classroom format, and that makes it like 7 years. So that was an adjustment to me at first, but I think it's gone very well now, and I have no problems at all.
So I'm going to ask this because my daughter did like French online for a couple of years. So I'm wondering if you had a struggle when you actually were in person with people, having to tune your ear to listening and speaking because you got less of that online.
So my biggest issue with learning Russian came that I didn't speak it in person with anybody for about a year or two until after I'd already been learning it for that amount of time. And
Mm.
when I studied Russian, I study in Russian first of all. So as soon as I got my B1 certification and enrolled in the university, all of my classes are and were in Russian. So most of my Russian vocabulary at that time, pretty much all of it, was related to scientific terminology and terminology relating to my course of study. It was not things like toothbrush or, realistic words that you use every day. So I would have trouble with very basic everyday situations sometimes when I moved. But in an academic setting, I didn't have that problem. And I remember the first time that I spoke Russian with somebody in person. It was Christmas 2 years ago. Yeah, it was Christmas 2023, and it was Christmas Eastern Orthodox Christmas, I should say. And I met with a wonderful lady from Donetsk, who we went to a Russian church and a Ukrainian church to celebrate. And I remember that I had a little bit of hard time understanding her accent. And I noticed that there were certain words that were said differently because of the Ukrainian accent, like not gavarila, no havarila. And so it was a very interesting experience for me. And I'm very thankful for the people that helped me study Russian when I lived in the US still, that were willing to practice with me and that met with me. And I met a wonderful family from Russia when I was still living in Charlotte, who I still keep in touch with, that moved to the US right before I left. And I'm so thankful for them, for example, that they invited me over and helped me practice Russian. And it just, as I said before, it speaks to the kind Russian soul.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I've started learning. My wife can always tell where somebody is from in Russia or Ukraine, but Gamburger and hamburger, uh, you know, so that one throws me all the time. For me, it's always Gamburger. So. So Vonda Grubb, she is one of our regular viewers, always here, and she said, "Wow, you found your northern star at such a young age." So,
Thank you. I
um,
appreciate that.
but here's a question for her. I have my own opinion on this, but she wants to know, why would Russians treat someone better as a Westerner? Do you have an opinion on that?
I do. I think First of all, I think that a lot of younger Russians who didn't live in the Soviet Union, I think that they have a very positive perception of Westerners overall. I think that Western soft power, Western propaganda has played a huge role in forming Russian perception of the West for those that didn't live in the Soviet Union. And generations that are younger, they grew up watching American films and consuming American media, and that really shaped their perception of Westerners. The biggest comment that I get when somebody finds out that I'm American is they talk about Hollywood, New York. A lot of times people say, "Oh, it's my dream to move to the U.S. because I grew up watching Hollywood movies." And this, of course, isn't a full perspective of the U.S. or the West. And most people, I think, kind of summarize the West as being kind of America and the U.S. And so I think that's a big part of it. And I think another part of it is just the fact that there's not so many of us here. And I think people are just very curious to the fact of why we're here. And the people that aren't as enamored with Hollywood and things like this and are more patriotic, I sometimes receive nice treatment from them as well, because they understand that I chose to move to Russia, that it's my choice to be here. And they have respect for that or appreciate that. And so I think that's a big part of it. What do you guys think?
Well, Eddie, you got comments on that one?
Yeah, I think that not only for your generation, but also for Generation X, which is a little bit older than you, they grew up or came of age, we'll say, in the 90s. So after the fall of the Soviet Union. And so there was access to Western movies and cinema and culture from the West started to flow into Russia. And so I think that as well has changed people's perspectives about that. But I find that as a Westerner in Russia, I would say before SMO, I would receive very positive and favorable treatment. After SMO, I still get good treatment, don't get me wrong, but they kind of scratch their head and want to know, why are you here again? And so the question has changed a little bit. Instead of, wow, you're a Westerner, it's like, wow, you're a Westerner. Tell me again why you're here. So it's changed a little bit.
Well, for me, I've always gotten that question. I've been here full time for 4 years and probably half time for years before that. But I've always gotten the question, why are you living here when you could live in the United States? And for me, it was simple. I didn't run away from anything in the West. I came here because we chose to. I fell in love with the peninsula, wanted to live here, but I find that people, I can't say they treat me well because they want to know about the West, but there's a big part of that in them treating me well, becoming friends with me. And then the questions start of, what do you like better about living here than in the United States? What about the opportunities in the West? And, just this curiosity about the West. I find Russians in general want to befriend Westerners because they want to know all they can about other cultures and other countries, which is something I never experienced growing up. I mean, I was that early Gen X era of, the evil Soviet Union. And, so it was kind of refreshing to be treated that way. Now, there's some things I don't get treated any better at, but often I do. Customer service isn't a great thing, at least in Crimea. So, that's about it for me.
I think that a lot of the treatment that I get that's positive comes from the fact that I do speak Russian decently. And I think that people pick up on the accent because I do have an accent still. So I think that they understand that I'm not Russian, but I do speak Russian. And I think that when people talk to me, they understand like why I came here and why I genuinely enjoy living in Russia and have a deep appreciation for Russian culture and Russian people. And I think that influences a lot of the treatment that I get because I've heard stories of other Westerners that have had more difficulties than I have. And I think as far as customer service goes, I'm probably still too friendly, at least if we're talking about blending in with society, because I always wish people have a good day and stuff like this. I still do that. I don't smile at strangers, but I do still do that. And it typically takes people off guard a little bit, but I found that they appreciate it too.
Yeah. So Novokusuj, I love names like this. Just talking about when she was a student in English language and translation, she had a lot of group mates who wanted to learn the language and immigrate to the United States. And she says now that her students barely know anything about the United States and don't consider moving there. I find that interesting because I find a lot of Russians your age, Sydney, who want to go there to experience the United States and see if it's really, like you say, Hollywood or what they've seen on TV. See if it's really as bad as they see in the news that it is. And, as I make that statement, I will tell everybody, I don't care if you're Russian or American, when you see something on the news, understand there's a lot of propaganda in it, no matter which side you're on. So you really have to look at things carefully. I have to put that statement out there all the time. So I wanted to know, Sydney, are you willing to share with people what you're studying at the university?
Yeah, of course. I study international relations. That's my major. Um, I'm currently in Russian it's cafedra. I guess in English it's department. I'm at the Department of European Studies, and right now I'm writing my thesis on American soft power in the post-Soviet space with the example of Moldova from 2014 to 2022. Last year I wrote my thesis on Russian-Slovenian relations. And in my first year, I wrote my thesis on how Soviet estrada was used as soft power in the Eastern Bloc from the 50s to the 1980s. So I've had a very wide range of interests that hasn't entirely been nailed down yet, but I'll probably continue writing on American soft power in the post-Soviet space. Next year, I'd like to focus on Russia.
Cool. So you brought this up a little earlier. So viewer wants to know, this viewer is Slovenian, wants to know why you were originally thinking about studying in Slovenia.
So I actually finally went to Slovenia this year in September, and all the reasons that I wanted to go were validated. I think it's a absolutely beautiful country. And what's amazing about it is that you can be at the mountains at 1 p.m. and you can go to the beach at 3 or 4 p.m. because everything is so close by. And I was really interested in the Balkans in general. And Slovenia is one of my favorite countries still. It has a very special place in my heart. And everything there is just so beautiful and pristine. And I really liked the prospect of studying there because as somebody who I'm from Charlotte, which is one of the bigger cities in the US, but I lived in the suburbs, and I originally thought that Ljubljana would be a good place for me to study as being a capital of Europe, but not being overwhelmingly large because I just wasn't sure how I would handle being in a larger city. And I had an interest in Slovenian culture, and I still have a great appreciation for Slovenian culture and Slovenian people. And there were so many places that I wanted to go in Slovenia, and I was finally able to go to pretty much all of them this year. So I'm so happy with that. It was a long time dream of mine. And I will say that I prefer living in Russia. I think Russia was the right choice for me as far as living in Russia, but Slovenia, as I said before, still has a special place in my heart. And yeah.
So get us all back on the screen here. Victoria Berger wants to know, she thought you were Russian, and she wants to know, do you find it difficult to get funding as a student?
Funding in what way specifically? Like from the Russian government, does she mean?
I don't know. Victoria, can you clarify your question in chat a little bit, and we'll answer that for you? Wanda wants to know if education in Russia is more in person than online.
100%. And as I heard, they're doing away with a lot of online courses that originally they offered at my university. We do still have some online courses that we're required to take, but the majority of it is offline and in person. And when I studied online for my first year, it was not what they wanted me to do. I had to fight actually to be able to continue to study online in the second semester. And I was the only student in my year studying it online in my second semester because everybody else had already moved to Russia and was in person. I was not able to go over immediately because of some family issues and also some difficulties with logistics after the special operation began. But as soon as I was able to go over there, then everything was in person, and that is how they prefer it.
Yeah, I kind of noticed since I was here, during and after COVID. Did I actually say that out loud, Eddie? I've been remonetized for a day, and I use the
You use the C word.
I use the C word. YouTube, I apologize. I am not making any statement about the virus. But I found that there were like no online courses before that. And then they brought out a lot of online courses to keep students, from being together in classrooms. So I guess them trying to eliminate that is trying to go back again to no online courses. That would be my guess.
So I will say at my university, there's something called открытое образование, like open education, open DU, I think it's in English called this. And they offer courses from St. Petersburg State University and other universities, I think not just from Russia, but around the world. And there was a similar platform called Coursera, which my university used to offer courses on, but after the special military operation and sanctions, Coursera removed all of their courses, unfortunately. So now it's all on the platform called OpenEDU. And there are some really interesting courses there that I recommend to people who want to get a Russian perspective, want to get a different perspective than a Western perspective. And there are just so much interesting content on it.
Sydney, I have a question for you. Did I understand that your high school education was online as well or in person?
My high school education was entirely online.
Online, okay.
Wow.
And so the follow-up question to that is, obviously there's a big difference in academics from high school to university. The way courses are taught, things of that nature, but how academically challenging is Russian university, I guess, compared to your online high school, which I guess you never attended university in the States, did you? No.
No.
So for you, I mean, obviously you are very articulate, have a very good education, I can tell, and you're a very smart person, a very smart woman, but how academically challenging is it to study in Russia and then to study in Russian?
So it was a big jump for me from my online education to studying at St. Petersburg State University. St. Petersburg State University is ranked by Western institutions as being the third best university in Russia. And I would say it's definitely one of the best universities in Russia. That's a fact. And it's the best university in St. Petersburg as a fact. And I would compare it as to being a level of the upper echelon of universities in the US. It's on that same level. For instance, in my first semester, I had about 10 courses that I had in one semester.
Wow.
And it was insanely intense. And I was not really prepared for that. The only thing that really prepared me for it was that when I studied in the preparatory program, I had classes every single day. And in my last semester of my preparatory program, I had classes from about 2 a.m. to about 12 p.m., 5 days a week. And so just the amount of time that I spent studying, that prepared me for it a little bit. But the most challenging part for me of studying at a Russian university in my first year was writing my thesis for the first time. Because my thesis was in Russian. It's always in Russian. And I never had to write something of that volume, of that level, of that caliber. My first thesis was, I think, about 50 pages. And so I just had no preparation for that. And I'm so lucky that I had really wonderful professors, and I still have very wonderful professors who have helped me out so much and kind of taken me under their wing. And so that for me is huge. I'm looking at trying to write an article soon and perform at a conference with it, although it'll probably be in English, not in Russian. But so the biggest difficulty for me with studying was just studying in Russian, because it is so intense. And the biggest difficulty for me was that for international relations, there's so few content of what I'm studying in Russian that's available in English. I couldn't even find a single textbook in English for my subject last year, which was History of International Relations. That was our hardest subject last year. And I even asked my professor, I said, is there any information in English that you can recommend? And he said, I'm not aware of any English language textbook about this. And another huge issue that I feel like is a problem just in American society in general is that information is blocked behind a paywall consistently. And in Russia, it's not this way. If you want to get access to a research article, a textbook, I've never had to pay money to buy a textbook for my university. It's always been provided to me, or I've been able to find it online. If I wanted a hard copy, then I could buy it. But to find a digital version, it's always been free. And in the US, if I tried to find an article, I'll have to pay $50 for it, or I won't even be able to have access to it because I'm not a student of an American university. And I feel like this is a bigger problem, symptomatic in American society, is that people have to have money to get quality information. And it shouldn't be that way. I think it's properly done in Russia, where you can go onto, for instance, Kiberlinina, I think that's how it is, which is a research paper site where everything is for free, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful place to learn new information. There are several sites like this, and there's nothing similar in the English information sphere. So to circle back to the main question, sorry, I got a little bit off topic there. It was just the sheer volume of it, and in my first year, I tried to take notes, for instance, in Russian. I thought, I need to study everything in Russian because my course language is in Russian. And I realized that trying to memorize all of this information in Russian was not easy. It was not going to happen. So now, for instance, I take all my notes in English unless I'm sitting in class and listening in Russian. Then I take it in Russian. But otherwise, even when I perform, when I present a doklad, then I take all of my notes in English, and I have certain words in parentheses in Russian, so I don't have to say anything in English, but I translate as I speak through my presentation.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think about it, my daughter, who was also an international relations student, it cost her $700,000-$800,000 a semester for her textbooks. So just to kind of support what you're saying, that, here they're giving you what you need to learn.
That was a huge takeaway, by the way, and a complete eye opener for me, because I didn't realize that all of the course material was actually provided. Here I was thinking you would have to purchase it as well, like we do here in the States. So that's incredible.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I mentioned the Open EDU information because, for instance, my thesis supervisor, kind of like my mentor, my main professor, he showed us a presentation in class, and I wanted to have access to it to look on it more over myself afterwards. And he said that he couldn't give it to me, but he said, we actually have an entire course on Open EDU about this. And he was able to send me a whole course, which I was able to enroll in for free through my university. And I don't even think you have to be at my university to enroll in it for free, but it just speaks to how much free information there is on the Russian information sphere that just doesn't exist in the English information sphere.
Interesting.
Yep. So, Miso wants to know, is there discrimination for getting admission to an educational institution in Russia based on age?
So I feel like it's probably something that maybe people, if I understand the question properly, I would say that pretty much everybody I know at my university is about close to the same age. I'm on the older end because I'm 23, and most of my course mates are 20, for example, or 19, because I took a gap year after I graduated high school and then enrolled in the preparatory program. I have yet to hear about somebody over 25 that's studying in university, but I think this is because education in Russia is so accessible that there are people in the US, for example. You have people that are older that end up going to university because they weren't able to when they were younger, because they couldn't afford it. That's the number one reason I hear about people in their 40s or 30s going back to school. And in Russia, I feel like that's just not an issue because people are able to afford education. People aren't taking out multiple loans typically to pay for university. And there are plenty of government funded spots or opportunities for people to get support from the government so that people aren't having to then go back later and go to university. They're able to go to it when they're at a young enough age that it's still accessible. I hope that answers Misha's question.
I think so. So Regis wants to know, is St. Petersburg State University where President Putin graduated from?
Yes, it is, in fact.
So there you are. You're in good company.
Yes, it's something I'm proud to say. It's definitely something that I told a lot of Americans about before I went, that questioned the university just because it's Russian. And I was like, well, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin graduated from this university, so who graduated from yours?
Good way to throw it back.
Yes.
Yes.
So Sydney, can you tell us a little bit about this project you've launched?
Opening Russia, yes.
Yeah.
So Opening Russia was originally started through my journalism class. It was originally started by me and a friend of mine, Diana, and it's really evolved. Now there are 8 of us working on it from 3 different continents, from North America, myself, from Europe being Russia, and then from Asia, we have 2 girls from Kazakhstan that work on it and 1 girl from South Korea. And we've completed 7 interviews at this point. 5 of them are published. And our whole goal is basically to fill in the gaps that a lot of other channels aren't covering about moving to Russia, because when I entered the university, there was no information about entering Russian universities as an American, as a foreigner, especially in English. And so I really did everything myself. I didn't go through a government agency to help me. I didn't go through a special program. I did everything on my own. And went through the application process as every other foreign student did. There was no special government organization that held my hand through it or anything like that. But I'd like to help make this easier for students that are coming, because of course, under the new decree 702, there's the shared values visa, and there's more people that are coming to Russia. And I feel like even those that aren't coming on the new visa, but are coming for education and other reasons, it's relevant because it's promoting a greater trend of Westerners coming to Russia, being welcomed into Russia, and shows the trend that I hope will continue in Russian society and with Russian lawmakers. Of course, there's Maria Valerievna Butina, who is a big proponent of Westerners coming to Russia and has so much support for us that come over. And so on the background of that, we want to help provide information for those who are looking to come so that they can come and be successful. And there's a lot of ideas that we have. We have an unending number of ideas at this point. For instance, we have an idea to do interviews with Russian etiquette specialists who deal with etiquette for diplomats, and as well as just general etiquette, to talk about how etiquette in Russia differs from maybe the US or other Western countries, and things that foreigners should know so they don't embarrass themselves or make a faux pas in society. That's one idea we have. We've done an interview recently with an accountant who talked about different features of Russian banking systems. Like, for example, in most Russian banks, you can save your currency you can save your money in different currencies, like dollars, yen, and things like this. So we asked questions about that. There's also an interview that we did with one of my professors who's a businessman. He was a successful businessman before he became a professor, and he works with launching startups at the university for our students. And we did an interview with him about starting a business in Russia. And so we have all these different spheres that we're branching into, because we want to show more than just typical content that's talking about the metros and the grocery stores, because this is very important, obviously, as well. No, nothing against that content at all, because it's so important to dispel stereotypes about the West, but we want to work on more informative content that hopefully will help people make a more informed choice to come here. Because unfortunately, I think there are people that come here and don't know what they're getting themselves into and sell everything, and they come here and then they're in shock because they weren't properly prepared for coming over. And so we kind of hope to help eliminate that and help people make an educated choice, informed choice before they come here.
Well
So
done.
I'm going to put your channel up again, because I saw somebody in the comments. Sorry, I haven't been replying to people in the comments. We have a technical issue with the comments. I'm seeing everything, just can't respond to you there. But if you haven't, somebody said they were your 99th subscriber on your channel during this show. So if you're not subscribed to Sydney's YouTube channel, go out there, subscribe to it, and listen to her content. It's great. Everything she just stated, she is actually accomplishing out there. So.
And I'd like to say I saw the person who said this, and judging from their name and their profile photo, I'm guessing they're Serbian. So hvala.
Yep. And so a couple of more questions for you here. So Anya, I saw you say your name was Anya. So do you plan to find employment in Russia or move somewhere else for your work when you graduate?
So my plan is to stay in Russia. I have no plans to move elsewhere right now. I'm looking at staying either in St. Petersburg or moving to Moscow. But I'll probably, right now it's looking like I'll stay in St. Petersburg because I really enjoy living here. But it just depends on what opportunities I have, but I'm definitely planning to stay in Russia as of right now. I'm going to start working on soon getting on my RVP, or RVPO, which is temporary residency. And I hope to eventually get vid na žiteljstvo, which is permanent residency for those that know about that. But I'm still at the beginning of that legal process, that legal journey. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to get certain documents from the US right now. I'll probably go back to the US in the summertime for about a month just to work on getting that document. So that's what I hope to do.
That was one of my questions, Sydney. Have you been back to the States since you've been studying in Russia?
So I moved last year at the end of April to Russia, and I went back to the US for about a month in August. And I have not been back since August of 2023, but I'm supposed to go back for about 10 days at the end of January.
Good deal.
Cool. So you hear all the fear out of people about once you've traveled to Russia and you go back to the United States, about how scary it is, and they're going to hold you for hours and ask you questions about what you did and who you are and who you met and all this other stuff. So I want to ask Eddie a question that will remove those fears from you permanently. Eddie, when you flew back just a couple of weeks ago, how long did you spend in passport control to actually get through the border?
It's interesting because leaving Russia took longer than it did to enter the United States because, and I'll just explain this. So I handed my U.S. passport to passport control at the airport when I was flying from Moscow, and I had to submit my immigration card because my migration card rather. So when you enter the country, you're given a migration card depending on the type of visa that you enter Russia with. And when you leave the country, you must produce this document back to passport control. But this year, I was granted RVP, temporary residency permit. So the immigration officer that I handed my passport to, I give her the passport and I give her the migration card. And then she sees my RVP and she's totally confused. Like, why does this guy have a migration card and RVP? And it took her a few minutes to figure it out. Anyway, that's just administrative. So I walked out of the country. When I arrived in Houston and I approached the customs officer and I give him my passport, he immediately swiped it, waited for the return on his computer, put it back down on the table right in front of me and said, "Have a good day, sir." Maybe 20 seconds, maybe 20 seconds. Yeah, it's
and look at that face. If anybody would get stopped in question.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, you had some guys you met in Turkey that came back into Russia that got stopped because of you, right?
Very interesting situation. So a husband and wife, personal friends of mine, back in Moscow, had returned from the States and they were flying through Istanbul as I was. And it just so happened to be that we were traversing at the same time. So we stopped and we had a short little meal at the airport and we took a selfie. And I flew to Texas. They flew back to Moscow. Upon arrival in Moscow, my friend, who's American, married to a Russian, he was stopped by FSB and taken to secondary questioning. And of course, they asked to search his cell phone. And they looked through there and they saw one of the last photographs that we had taken, which was the selfie we took in Istanbul. And they said, "Who's this guy? And why are you meeting him? Where did you meet him?" And, "Well, we met him in Istanbul." "Well, why are you meeting this guy? Who is he?" "Well, he's an American." "An American? Why are you meeting an American in Istanbul?" "Well, he's traveling back to the ISIS." "From where?" From Moscow." Oh, yeah. So you can imagine the questioning and how that happened. So I have never been questioned by FSB when I've returned to the States. I mean, when I've returned to Moscow. from the
Yeah,
States,
knock on wood.
but I expect that to happen every time I go. I'm ready for it. So maybe this time I'll get lucky. Who knows?
It's funny.
Uh,
We actually had our journalism professor when we presented our final project to him with Opening Russia. He said, you should just be prepared that the FSB, they're gonna start looking into your project now that it's published, now that you have a website, they're gonna look into this, and maybe the CIA will too. Well, about a week after that happened, one of the girls in our team, her mom was witness to some kind of accident, and so the FSB came by to question her, and they looked into the whole family. And so they told her, they said, your daughter has this project about Russia. It's a good project. And my friend, the girl on our team, she said, I don't have any other project about Russia. It was about opening Russia. So we have been officially FSB approved.
Yeah, everybody's on the radar,
Absolutely. And I won't make comment about that. Okay, so here's a comment. I'm going to put it up here just because it's important. Sydney, you came to Russia with a plan. You knew what you wanted to do. You knew what you were going to do. Eddie and I tell people this all the time. Do not decide you're going to move here permanently. Sell everything you've got, pick up your 4 or 5 kids, and move to Russia, and not have a plan and a backup plan. Soyanis is saying that they see lots of people fail in Russia due to poor planning. So congratulations on having good planning. And again, this is the stuff you've got on your YouTube channel is, helping people plan, know what to expect. And
and I want to go back and just kind of reiterate something that Sydney said earlier. And she says that with her Opening Russia project, she is attempting to fill a gap in the YouTube sphere with regard to Russia and with regard to moving to Russia, especially for those seeking higher education. And I think this is perfect because, and not only that perfect, but perfect timing, because Kevin and I have assisted families, and we currently assist families in either visiting Russia or moving to Russia. And many of these, of course, their families have children and they have questions about education. A lot of their questions so far have been with regard to maybe like elementary age children or maybe in secondary school, but eventually they're going to want to probably continue their education in university. And I think what you're doing in your Opening Russia project is incredibly valuable. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to say how happy and proud I am that you have taken the initiative to do this, because you saw a need, you saw this gap and said, if not me, then who? So thank you for doing that. And I probably speak for Kevin, but I won't put words in his mouth, but we're glad you're here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
You really do make a contribution. You're doing what Eddie and I try to do a lot, which is helping people. And you certainly are filling a gap. So, we welcome you and we'll do everything we can to help you with that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
So Victoria says she thinks it's a bit too late as a foreigner. How do you make a living in Russia? Or as a foreign student, can you apply for grants? Yes, part of the question is how are you paying for your education?
So my education in Russia, Sorry, I'm actually a bit under the weather, as I told Kevin earlier. My education in Russia is far cheaper than it would be in the US. I pay less for my education in Russia than I would pay for a community college in Charlotte. And this is at one of the most expensive universities in Russia, mind you. So I currently don't work. I have kind of an opportunity that I may do, which is I have kind of an offer to work as an editor with a cultural digest for St. Petersburg. I haven't started that work yet, but that's something that I'm looking at starting in the new year. And occasionally I get offers for doing teaching jobs for teaching English. I have yet to take one though, simply because my main priority right now is my studies. And if I'm going to work, I want it to be something that's either going to pay very, very well, or something that has a future that I can kind of continue working in after I graduate as well. And I haven't found that yet, except when I first moved here, I did work doing voicing documentaries, actually, in English. And I didn't continue that just because I had some health issues, but it's something that I enjoyed doing, and it paid well, and I was fortunate to have that opportunity. And you can apply for grants, you can apply for support from the government. Unfortunately, the stipends, as I know, are quite small. But if I wanted to, I could apply for a government spot at the university, a government paid spot. I haven't done that yet, but that's something that I may consider doing in the future. But honestly, the amount that's being paid for university is just so small in comparison to what I'd be paying in the US, that it's not such a critical amount for me, as it is for some people. And so while it's something that I may consider doing, it's not something that I've had to consider doing at this point.
Okay. Hey, Eddie, take a look at the private chat for a sec. So Sydney, Anya wants to know, do you have an automatic pass on all your general English classes? Or do they make you still take them?
So the interesting thing at my university is that as international relations students, we are all required to know English and one other foreign language, or that's how it should be typically for Russian students. Because I'm a foreigner, technically I have to study Russian, of course, but I also have to study English. And the only way for me not to have to study English is to get a B2 certification in Russian. But if I get the B2 certification in Russian, that means that I will have to study English and another foreign language. I'll still have to study English. And I just won't have access to Russian classes anymore, which I need the Russian classes. And I even went to a few Japanese classes, which is offered at my university, because I had planned to get that B2 certification. And I went to a couple of them unofficially. And I just understood that there was no way that I could improve my Russian and be fully dedicated to that and try to learn Japanese. I found that there was just no way I could do this, unfortunately, which is a pity because the professor for Japanese was wonderful. And there were some of my friends in the class, and the classes were very interesting. But I just found I couldn't do that. So right now I go to English and Russian. Well, I don't go to English. I don't go because of obvious reasons. So I have an automatic pass for my English classes because of being a native speaker.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that he can help you with Japanese in the future, but if you want to learn Chinese, we have just the guy who can help you learn that, which is our friend Andy Afrolev. Good guy. He actually is an educator as well, so lives in Moscow though.
Yeah, I
No, you
know
can do
Andy.
distance
He's
learning.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And actually, my roommate is Chinese, from China.
There you go. Okay. Any questions for Sydney, Eddie, or anyone in the audience? Last questions as we're hitting the hour.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just want to say how delightful it has been to sit and have this conversation with you. It's wonderful. I hope to meet you in person one day, maybe in St. Pete, maybe in Moscow, but yeah, we need to make that happen.
For sure. I'd love to.
I agree. Same here. Or everybody can come to Crimea.
We could do that too.
I'm
Oh,
down.
Anya has a last minute question. So, do you have any extracurricular activities besides YouTube?
So I have another YouTube channel that I've had for about 4 years now, and I publish song covers on it. I do singing, although I just do it as an amateur. It's nothing professional or anything like this, but I cover songs in different languages. I've covered songs in Russian, Indonesian, Japanese, Korean, Mongolian, Albanian, Serbian. I cover pretty much any language that I want to. I study the phonetics and try to learn it. And right now, I also do Bollywood dancing. And that's something that I love that I have the opportunity to do here in St. Petersburg, that there's an Indian dance school that's 10 minutes away from me by foot. And it's something that in Charlotte, there are no similar opportunities. So I love that I can take advantage of that here. And it's something that I really enjoy doing. The instructors are wonderful, and they teach not just Bollywood and modern dances, but also traditional dance genres as well. And so those are the main things that I partake in as far as being kind of creative. Aside from that, I enjoy just going to museums, going to excursions, as I did today, to the Lyceum Mansion with my friend. That was a lot of fun. And just exploring the city, trying new foods, new cuisines, things like this. I just try to constantly keep myself busy and doing something interesting and enriching in some way. Oh, and I also do some volunteer work as well. I sometimes will go to orphanages to help children, and there's an amazing lady in St. Petersburg who organizes all of this. Her name is Anya, and she organizes not just trips to orphanages to help children in orphanages, but also to help children that are currently battling with cancer. She recently organized a present drive to grant all of their wishes for the children that are in the hospital. And she also is I'm bone marrow. She's a bone marrow donor and is constantly promoting and raising awareness for donors for bone marrow, because there's not enough in Russia for people that are trying to donate this. Thank you, Anya. So she's really wonderful and is somebody who just inspires me as well. And so yeah, I got a little off track there, sorry, but I wanted to mention her because she's somebody that's amazing. And I've met a lot of people like this that have just been truly inspiring, and I'm thankful for that.
Hey, one last question. What are the rents like at your place?
So to answer your question, Misha, it depends on where you are in St. Petersburg. I actually live in Petrogradskaya, which is one of the more expensive places in St. Petersburg. Typically, the biggest phrase that I hear as far as what salary is needed to live comfortably in Russia in St. Petersburg, typically that is about $1,000 a month. People say that that's needed to live comfortably, to include rent and all of their costs of living. It's that amount that's needed. I live in Petrogradskaya. I have a 2-bedroom apartment, and I pay about $600 more or less. And this is considered a good price. And some people think it's expensive in St. Petersburg, but when they find out where I live, then they understand the price, because I just have such a good location. But when you compare this to Charlotte, for example, it's an amazing price.
Yeah. So we've gone a little over our hour. So you have any closing comments you want to make, Sydney?
I just like to say thank you so much to you and Eddie for giving me this platform. And Kevin, thank you so much for all of your help that you've given me. I'm very thankful for that. And Eddie, all of your support from both of you. I really appreciate that. And it's been wonderful being on the Russian YouTube sphere, especially with wonderful people like you guys and other people that have been great as well, like Andy Afterlev. He's wonderful too. And there's just so many great YouTubers. It's wonderful to be amongst you guys. And I look forward to continue developing my channel. I hope that all three of us can meet at some point. I plan to come to Moscow probably sometime next year. I don't know exactly when, but it's definitely something I have plans to do. And it'd be great to collaborate with you both as far as YouTube content too.
Absolutely, count on it.
Yep, absolutely. All you have to do is ask. So, Eddie, closing comments?
Just great to be here. Sunny, I mean, well, you can't tell, but it's 1:09 p.m. in the afternoon, and it is probably in the high 80s. So sorry if you're in colder climates.
And what is that in Celsius, Eddie? For those of us who are Fahrenheit challenged?
Probably today about plus 30. Yeah. More or less.
Just checking your math skills.
They're getting better.
Yeah. Eddie estimates like I do.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Sydney, thank you for agreeing to come on. And it's been wonderful having you. And like I say, if you need anything, just ask. I want everybody that's listening right now to go out to her YouTube channel and subscribe and like a bunch of videos. They're well done. They're in Russian and English. So whichever language you speak or prefer to listen in, you will get it there. So
absolutely. And if I could just add, if you have family or friends that are thinking or maybe going to a university, say in the next year or so, and you might want to send some of these videos and share these videos on your Facebook, on Instagram, wherever, and let's help get this word out, because Russia might be the place for them to study.
Yep.
And I think it's especially visible on the channel. I want to say real quick, we have a bunch of interviews with our professors, and I think you can tell just by their interviews what wonderful and knowledgeable people that they are. I feel like it really is visible in the interviews, because that is truly, I would say, my favorite part of our university and studying in Russia is just the amount of knowledge our professors have and just how wonderful they are. And yeah, I can't really overstate that. And the amount of support that Opening Russia has received, and the reason it's been able to continue the way it has, is because of that support from our professors that have been willing to give us interviews, that have been championing us. Especially my professor from the first interview on our channel, Artem Vladimirovich Barenkin. He has been a huge supporter of our channel and our project, and I'm so grateful for that. And he's been such a big help. And I wouldn't be successful as I am in Russia, period, even outside of university, without the support of my professors that I've had. So I'm just so thankful for that.
All right. Great. So everyone, thanks for coming. Thanks for your questions. Go support Sydney on the YouTube channel. Visit the website. I just had it up there on the screen. And if you all post comments later or questions later, I will make sure that they get to Sydney and get answered for you. So again, thank you for joining us, Sydney. It was really great having you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful being here.
Yeah. So, do svidaniya, arrivederci, adios.
Adios, amigo.
С наступающим.
Super.
Oh, Ajit came back.
Sorry.
Yep.
С чего начинается Родина? С окошек горящих вдали, со старой отцовской будённой.